Mr. Crenshaw, welcome. The floor is yours. Thank you so much for all you do for the folks in the 2nd District of the great state of Texas.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today. Thank you for hosting this. So I want to tell a story to start this off. About 3 years ago, I was having dinner at a friend's house. He was ex-Marine. He had served in Afghanistan as a civil affairs Marine during the historic push through Marja, so it was heavy combat. He is a childhood friend of my wife's, so we've known each other for quite a long time. And he suffered serious traumatic brain injuries from a vehicle-borne IED. Rocked him pretty bad. He couldn't speak for a while. He had terrible memory loss. Crushed him for many years. You know, eventually gained back a lot of those motor functions, but the internal issues were, of course, still there. And as we're having dinner, he tells me about some treatment that he had just done down in Mexico through an American nonprofit, an American doctors, but it was a psychedelics treatment where you go down for one day and you take a dose of Ibogaine, and the effects last for about 12 hours, and there's doctors involved, and the next day they do another treatment, and then they leave. And he talked to me about how it changed his life, how he stopped drinking alcohol, how he stopped needing any pain medications. His wife, more importantly, told me how it changed their lives. I thought that was really interesting. I never heard this kind of testimony before. They live in Maryland. So we drove back here. At the time, I was renting an apartment in Navy Yard, and I get in my elevator. And in that elevator is a guy named John Lubecky. And I don't know him, but he knows who I am. And he says, "Hey, sir, just want to let you know I'm an old Marine, and I tried to kill myself 4 times until I did this treatment." He was talking about the exact same treatment in the exact same clinic that my good friend Mike was talking about. So all on the same night, this happens to me. That's why I decided to take on this issue. Because as it turns out, I have a lot more friends than I even realized who were affected by this. Some of those are on this committee, actually. The Luttrell brothers. They've told me about their experiences. My friend Henry Berkowitz, who's an advocate for vets, who may have come by your offices 1 or 2 times, have advocated for these treatments. 27% of post-9/11 veterans are diagnosed with PTSD. And the truth is we haven't made a whole lot of progress in actually treating it. And so we have to think outside the box. We have to do something new. So that's why I'm here, once again, actually pushing for further research into the use of psychedelics to treat PTSD, traumatic brain injury, and CTE. CTE is, of course, another form of brain injury. And I'm calling on Congress to use this year's NDEA to direct the Secretary of Defense to provide grants for psychedelic research to treat service members living with PTSD, TBI, and CTE. It's worth noting, we all voted for this already. We've passed this out of the House, and where all good things die, it died in the Senate. So why am I pushing for this? The studies are pretty promising. Recent private sector research into the use of MDMA to treat PTSD found that 88% of trial participants had a significant reduction in symptoms, and 67% no longer had PTSD. And this study is not an outlier. The first use of MDMA-assisted psychotherapy for PTSD in 2010 found that 83% of the patients given MDMA no longer met the criteria for PTSD, and follow-up results revealed that the positive effects persisted for years. Perhaps more compelling than the data are the personal testimonials you'll hear from veterans that I just spoke about. SEAL Team 6 operators like Marcus Capone, Jonathan Lubecky, and countless others who say this treatment turned them away from suicide, rescued their marriage, rescued their families, and pulled them out of the depths of despair that only veterans living with PTSD can describe. Here's the issue. Under current law, active duty service members suffering from PTSD must travel abroad to receive this treatment, risk losing their active duty status if they do so. This creates some problems. First, losing their active duty status means they're taken away from their community and friendships that are integral to their lives, only making the problems worse. They also no longer have the benefits of active duty status, which will further disrupt their lives and their families. Second, this prevents us from gaining the research we need to determine the true efficacy of psychedelic therapy. We still never understand the extent to which psychedelics can help our service members unless we start doing the necessary testing. So to be clear, this policy in the bill I'm proposing would not grant every single service member the ability to go out and try psychedelics on their own. It would not provide over-the-counter psychedelics at military pharmacies. It would not even dictate that psychedelics are effective and people with PTSD should seek them out as treatment options. All this would do is direct the DoD to begin the research and allow service members to keep their active duty status if they participate. It's It's a simple but positive step in the right direction. And I hope this committee will include this policy in the NDAA so we can truly study this innovative way to treat our service members and give them a chance to continue to serve while they take part in the treatment. I think they deserve that option, and we should not stand in their way. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Crenshaw. Thanks, too, for sharing those stories. We know the tremendous suffering that members of the military and their families go through in dealing with PTSD, and anything that we can do to help them on the path to recovery from that, I think, is key, and research is going to be incredibly important to that. So thanks so much for your advocacy, and as we do with all of our members, we'll do everything we can to keep that in consideration as we put together the NDAA. So thanks so much for your advocacy, for your sharing of stories of others, and making sure that we're doing everything we can to support our active duty and our veterans community that are dealing with PTSD. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I
Please,
could,
please,
very
yes.
quick. I appreciate you, and I think this is something that we really need to take a look at, because your point is, let's study it, let's make it available. And the thing that I find, well, idiotic is the word, the military, and by the way, doctors all across the country, they will give you all the opiates you want, like that, without even thinking about it. And also, much less reported is they will also give you all the benzodiazepines that you want. And the studies make it pretty clear that both of those drugs have severe long-term negative consequences, whatever they may do for you in the short term. And yet we have no problem prescribing those all day long. And yet we won't look at this, and I feel the same way about cannabis, for that matter. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but it's just mind-boggling to me that we won't study it, that we have this absolute prohibition on figuring out whether or not it will work, while meanwhile we're throwing all these other drugs. I mean, if we're not anti-drug, obviously, okay? We just seem to be anti a specific kind of drug. I don't know, maybe we can figure out some way for the pharmaceutical industry to make money off of those drugs, and then they'd be more interested in allowing it. But you get the gist. I'm 100% with you, and definitely want to try to figure out a way to move this forward. I know others on the committee have worked the issue as well, so look forward to working with you on it.
Appreciate that. There's a wide-ranging support on the committee, and I think it's time for Congress to get this done and get some advocates from the Senate as well. So I appreciate it.